Hey, what's up guys? My name is Sal, it's Christmas Eve, and this is another expedition log. In this episode, I go exploring with my dad to a now abandoned mall in the heart of Jackson, Mississippi. When we arrived there, it was getting dark and it was just days before Christmas. The vacant buildings were ominous against the cloudy winter sky, and the parking lots were barren. We visited the mall during my trip to the Gulf Coast, which extended well into January of 2018. And this is part 2 of that trip. My megalophobia was triggered when looking at the abandoned Dillards, and I genuinely felt uneasy in the massive parking lot staring at the empty concrete structures. But then, we went inside, and I was completely amazed at what we saw. Management took great pride in decorating this for what would be its last Christmas before closing. So come take a walk with me and my dad in the Metrocenter Mall in Jackson, Mississippi. But first, a word from our sponsor. Fun with Mickey and Friends Gumball Machine by Hasbro Play School. From the mid-1970s, this thing rewarded kids for diligently saving their pennies by giving them one gumball for one of their pennies. Check it out.
Here's a penny, Mickey. Thanks for the gumball. Get me a gumball for a penny, Bonzo. Thanks for the gumball. Penny for a gumball, Popeye. Let's play the gumball.
Gumball Banks. Get gumball refills and fill up Mickey Mouse, Popeye, or Bozo. See the gumballs go down. Watch the pennies go up.
What are you going to do with all your pennies, Popeye?
Gumball Banks from Hasbro.
When we pulled up into the parking lot at Metrocenter, I was completely floored. The state of decay that the parking lot itself was in was mind-blowing. There were giant craters filled with water everywhere, and I was constantly steering the car around so I didn't hit them. And then when I saw the buildings, I was speechless. They were just gigantic concrete structures that triggered my megalophobia. Just being in that super empty parking lot, looking at these huge, huge structures that obviously had nothing inside of them, it just gave me this really uneasy feeling. And my first experience here, outside of the car, was when we found the first entrance, and when I walked up to it, all of the doors were locked. So I wasn't even sure that this mall was still open yet.
No way that's open.
So in a desperate attempt, we drove around and looked for more doors to try and open to see if there was a way into the mall, since we had no idea yet.
Hey, go give it a try. Go give it a try real quick. Might be.
I even had my dad hop out of the car to see if he can open any of the doors. But eventually we drove around to the other side of the mall, and we saw a small contingent of cars and another entrance, which I am glad to report was open. On March 1st, 1978, a joint venture between Homart Development of Chicago and Jim Wilson and Associates of Montgomery, Alabama, formally dedicated the Metrocenter Mall in Jackson, Mississippi. The mall had 1.25 million square feet of retail space, 120 stores to choose from, and 3 anchors: McRae's, Gaffer's, and Sears. Then in May of 1979, D.H. Holmes would join the lineup as the 4th anchor. In 1985, the Mississippi Blue Laws made it illegal to sell certain things in certain conditions on Sunday. For example, it was illegal for a woman to buy pantyhose on her way to church. So, if a place sold pantyhose, they had to close that place on Sunday. At the time, merchants were able to sell beer on Sunday morning, but not soup. Meanwhile, the sale of furniture, hosiery, and even pet supplies was banned all day long, but it was legal to sell ammunition. Each city had slightly different laws, and generally most businesses were closed on Sunday in Jackson. The president of McRae's and Clay Cooley, who was another representative of the Metrocenter Mall, they spoke publicly and fought to get the law repealed. Then 1 year later, in January of 1986, the law was repealed as a state law, thereby giving the decision up to the municipality to enforce, which most stopped doing. This brought a ton more business to the mall, and it gave a breath of new life to the shopping center. In 1989, the mall was sold to a joint venture between Equitable Real Estate Investments Management Incorporated and the California Public Employees Retirement System, or CalPERS. Jim Wilson would stay on as the managing entity. The same year, D.H. Holmes was purchased by and rebranded as Dillard's in March for stock, with an indicated value of about $40 million. So Dillard's took over the D.H. Holmes nameplate, and the store at Metrocenter was converted into a Dillard's. In the early 90s, it was announced that the mall would be receiving a complete overhaul and total redesign. And on Wednesday, November 10th, 1993, the mall had its grand reopening. There was a new center court with a gorgeous skylight, New facades were installed at the mall entrances, and the food court got a redesign and many, many new tenants. A full-page ad was taken out in the November 7, 1993 edition of the Clarion Ledger, and the owners had this to say about the new makeover. Quote, "Beneath towering glass canopies, golden sunlight filters through cool jade palms, projecting a show of silhouettes and shadows against the floor of the courtyard. Scrumptious smells from the food court pull passers-by from their path. Stores upon stores invite shoppers to share in their treasures, promising their guests will wear them well. Everything familiar is new again, gleaming with restated radiance. Come witness a spectacle at Metrocenter." Their new slogan they adopted was, quote, "You'll see shopping in a new light." They were really milking that new skylight, and for really good purpose. While it was getting dark here, you can still see all of the skylights that they installed to bring more natural light into this mall. I think it's gorgeous. I think this is what malls should have, giant skylights. A lot of rural malls out in the country, they don't have skylights, which is a shame, because I think it's a really amazing addition to the mall's aesthetic. In 1997, Coyote Management of Dallas, Texas, got a $62 million loan from the Lehman Brothers and purchased 3 malls in Mississippi for $54 million. This included the Metrocenter Mall, which comprised 60% of the costs, or about $32.4 million. The thing is, the county appraised the mall at over $51 million, but the owners argued that it was worth only $21 million. The mall was 80% occupied at the time, so it was doing pretty well. And I'm not sure why the owners went back and argued that it was worth only $21 million, but they got $32.4 million for it. 1 year later, Gayfers went defunct in 1998 after Dillard's bought the company, and as a result, the Gayfers closed at the Metrocenter Mall. This closure would set off a chain of events which ultimately led to the mall's demise and closure. In 2003, the mall was sold to a joint venture of Jackson Metrocenter Mall and Metrocenter Atlanta, whose parent company was Westcor. Then in 2004, the Dillards, which had 2 locations in Jackson, decided to shutter the Metrocenter location in November of 2004.
Fancy seeing you here.
In 2005, Canon Management of Los Angeles assumed management of the mall, and then McRae's shuttered in 2006 and was taken over by Belk. And in 2007, Burlington Coat Factory assumed tenancy of the former Gayfers space. So do you hear that ad playing in the background right now? I actually found the advertisement that aired on television for this mall. Check this out.
The center of it all, Metrocenter, where shopping excitement brings a big smile. We've got the look, the taste, and the style. You deserve to have it all. We're the center of it all, Metrocenter.
Learn fun ways to conserve the environment as Metrocenter presents the musical The Jetsons Cosmic Cleanup this Saturday at 11, 12:30, 2, and 3:30 in Center Court.
The center of it all, Metrocenter.
It's like we're descending into the depths of hell.
So now we're going downstairs. We're taking the escalator, and you can see the extent to which mall management decorated this mall. It's gorgeous. All of the decorations are so tastefully done, and the mall is so clean. I get kind of sad thinking about this because they must have known that the mall was in its final stages of life. And I think they were just giving it one last hurrah for the holiday season. But now that we're on the bottom floor, you'll see exactly how dead this mall is. There's nothing happening here, and it reminds me a lot of what I saw at the Landmark Mall in Virginia.
What do you think now? Yeah, this really reminds me of
Something interesting happened in 2009, when the second story of the former Gafers was converted into what they called Metro Marketplace. This was a mall within a mall concept, much like the Seoul Plaza and Security Square Mall near Baltimore, which I covered in a few different videos if you look back in my Expedition Log series playlist. It seems that things were pretty bad at the mall even into 2010, when a reader wrote an article that they thought Metrocenter was closed in the Clarion Sun newspaper, and the paper had to confirm that the mall was actually open. And some even more bad press happened in 2011 when the mall was sued. An incident happened in August of 2009 when a woman was being robbed in the parking garage. She tried to thwart the attempt at robbery, but instead was caught by the vehicle on the robber and she was dragged around the parking lot. She got pretty badly injured. So the mall was sued for negligence, but the court ruled in favor of the mall, not the injured woman. This didn't look good. The public didn't want to see that. In what was probably the mall management's worst move, in 2012, they attempted to relocate all of their lower level stores up to the second floor with the goal of being able to close down the lower level. Most tenants demanded compensation for this move, and when mall management inevitably refused, most of those tenants closed their stores in retaliation. To make matters even worse, Sears shuttered in the same year, and Burlington Coat Factory sealed off their mall entrance, which dealt a devastating blow to business at the mall. In the same year, the mall management changed hands once again, now being managed by Overby Management. At their recommendation, the mall was put on sale in 2013 for $6.5 million. During this time, the Metro Marketplace was reconfigured as the Latin-themed La Plaza de Metrocenter in an attempt to bring new life to the 60,000 square foot space mall within a mall. And just 1 year later in 2014, the mall was sold to a joint venture of Jackson's own Overby Company, Colby Capital of Overland Park, Kansas, and the Walter Morris Companies of Wichita, Kansas.
I know, and it's beautiful. Like they're really doing a great job with decorations, but it's just so. I don't know. It's just. Yeah, it's just sad.
The mall suffered horribly over the next few years and declined rapidly. Tenants left at a quick pace, and the mall just faded away. And in January of 2018, the owners gave all remaining inline tenants eviction notices to be effective February 28, 2018, and the mall closed its interior corridors in August of 2018. After the mall closed its interior access, the Burlington was still open as the only anchor. However, in September of 2018, the city of Jackson and the Hines Community College assumed tenancy of the long vacant D.H. Holmes and later Dillard space, and that's actually still open to this day. And I'm hoping that they find more use of spaces within the mall for city offices and stuff like this, much like the Mountaineer Mall does, or even the Marley Station Mall, which used some anchor space for professional non-retail purposes for a while. It's a wonderful use for an abandoned mall, and I think more should take its lead.
Seen one open store yet down here? Except for the Senate office?
As I was walking around this mall with my dad, and looking at all the Christmas decorations and it being just a few days before Christmas, I couldn't help but think of all the wonderful Christmases that I had as a kid. My parents are amazing people, and I owe a lot to them. They instilled the spirit and magic of Christmas in me, even to this day. And as I'm recording this narration right now, it's Christmas Eve of 2018. And I just can't stop thinking about the incredible poem, The Night Before Christmas, which was recited to me many, many times as a kid, and which I'm sure I'll recite many times throughout my life. "'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eyes did appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver, so lively and quick, I knew in a moment he must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away all. As leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples how merry, his cheeks were like roses, and his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face, and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him, in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to work and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to the team he gave a whistle, and away they all flew, like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." As always, thank you all so much for watching this video. I wish you a happy holiday and warm season's greetings. And I hope that you all have an amazing 2019. I also want to give a special thanks to the Quite Studios research team, especially Kristen from Unicom Productions, who put in a lot of work trying to figure out the timeline for this mall. So thanks a lot, Kristen. And if you haven't checked out Unicom Productions, I'll post a link to their channel below, and I really think that you all should check them out. Ron and Kristen make some really great content over there, and I suggest them very, very highly. So thank you to all my patrons, subscribers, viewers, and everyone who supports the channel. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Take care.